working with brands that go, that's really great, Michelle and Rick. Nice of y'all to have that theoretical conversation, but I don't have the resources. I don't have the funds. I don't have the time. I don't have the priority to do all that experience stuff. What do you say to those brands?
Well, I wish you all the very best of luck because you won't be in business for very long.
Customer experience wisdom, a dash of travel talk. We've been cleared for takeoff.
The best meals are served outside and require a passport.
Buckle up because today is one of the longest flights from DFW, one of my home airports. I'm excited to introduce Michelle Pascoe, who joins us from Australia. Not only is Michelle a powerhouse in leadership and customer experience, she's a fellow podcaster. I want you to check out the Michelle Pascoe Hospitality podcast, and the links will all certainly be there in the show notes for you to click and get right to that podcast. Michelle brings over 30 years of experience helping teams unlock their potential and elevate customer service. Michelle is the founder and CEO of Optimum Operating Procedures and Services, where she specializes in transforming team performance and customer experiences. Known for her work in hospitality and multi-generational customer engagement, she's created programs like the Middle Management Movement and the VIP Principle, designed to empower teams and foster lasting connections with customers. Many think of Sydney or Melbourne when they think of Australia. Today, we're going to get out a bit, maybe a walkabout, and head to Borwell, which Michelle described to me as the Scotland of Australia. I'm very, very intrigued. Michelle, welcome to CX Passport.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rick, and hello to all your listeners. So yes, where I live is called the Southern Highlands. So it's about 90 minutes south of Sydney. That's on a good day when all the tourists don't come.
That's right. Those darn tourists getting in the way of things, tourists. Right? Oh, my goodness.
So it's called Barrel, and you may or may not hear we're here in the peak of summer now, or just about, and we have cicadas here in Australia. I don't know whether you have cicadas in America.
We definitely do. Absolutely. That means summer. That sound is the sound of summer.
Here. It is the sound of summer. They are so loud, but I've left my studio door open because I am hoping that we'll either have some magpies warbling, or perhaps even a kookaburra laughing.
Oh my gosh!
We did that the last time we were together, because it is semi-rural. Yes,
this is going to get real here. Now, Michelle, I plan to ask you a little bit more about that, hopefully later in the show. But yes. I would love if some of that nature you're describing comes in here, because now I'm in Texas, and I realize it's not as cold as other places in the world or even in my own country, but it's cold here. It's about to be winter. It's almost the U.S. Thanksgiving. So to hear summer, it gives me a little taste of what it might be on the other side of the world, and that's nice.
I would love to swap. I like cold weather. That's why I moved here.
Oh, let me tell you. I would be more than happy to swap. I'll tell you about a Disney book maybe later when we talk about the weather. Let's talk about hospitality, because that is at your core. It's your brand. It's your podcast. It's your focus. What is it? Why? What draws you to hospitality?
It's the people, Rick. I absolutely, I see it as an honor and privilege. And, over these last, 30 plus years now, some of those young boys and girls that I was training, on the front line, picking up glasses and emptying ashtrays all those years ago, have taken me on the amazing journey, and now, some of them may be CEOs or, 2 ICs, or perhaps, they've become the bistro supervisor. No, it doesn't matter where they've gone on their journey. They have been so kind and taken me with them, whether they're in the same venue or perhaps even they've gone multiple venues overseas or even interstate. And that's what I love, because for hospitality, for many, Rick, it is their first job out of school, or it's their job while they're at university. And it is an industry that teaches so much. One of those is tolerance, and we need a lot of that, but also how to actually engage and talk to people. So that's why I love it, because your listeners will find out I love talking, Rick, so it's the perfect thing for me.
There's a reason why you're a podcaster, and there's a reason why you're a podcast guest. I want to spend a little more time in that talking about it being sort of a very common first job. You're right. When I'm checking into a hotel, very frequently I see people who are probably at the early stages of their careers, or if I'm in a university town, it's very clearly staffed with frequently the university students. there's a lot of places that folks could choose to have their first career. What is it about hospitality that draws them to it? Why are they going there, along with then the benefits of gaining those lessons? But something must get them to go there first.
Yes, we'd like more of them to go there. And I'll just say that at the moment we have got hundreds of thousands of short globally. But I think what it is, it's that flexibility of hours, Rick. For many, it could be the little cafe that opens at 5 a.m. for the early tradesmen's coffee, to hotels that are open 24 hours a day, or casinos 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So there's such a breadth there. And it also provides them an opportunity to further their education, because for many, their first experience may be the local little takeaway shop with their parents, or, that fun little diners that you have there in the States, or, or that's that cafe where they've moved in with a group of friends from uni and one of the friends are working there, or, and so that's usually their first foray into, okay, this looks pretty good. It can't be too hard pouring a coffee and serving it. But as we know, Rick, it's not that easy, but it's still a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness. My first jobs were in grocery. So that side of retail, and then actual sort of clothing retail. Right. I avoided sort of the food and beverage side of hospitality because, as you said, it might look simple, but it is absolutely not simple. And I think that's a lot of the truth when it comes to experiences in general. When I'm at a great hotel or when I'm in the middle of this amazing travel experience, I don't really think about it. Just like we're saying, pouring coffee, it's easy, right? But when you're the customer, the passenger, the guest, the experience just happens when it's really great. How is it that brands can create those just intuitive experiences for customers?
And to me, it is sharing, the CEO, the manager, the owner of that business, really sharing with their team what their vision is. And then, of course, what their values are and how they model those values. And to give them that little, that word empowerment was that bit of a buzzword a few years ago. And that's coming back in because micromanaging doesn't work, but you do need to train them, but you do need to share that vision, because when you do, that's where that intuitive service comes in. When they know that knowledge. So, the person comes into perhaps your restaurant, and if you've shared with your frontline person where the potatoes have come from, perhaps the farmer has come in and shared it, or you've taken them on a trip down to your beautiful local markets that I know so many of your towns and cities have there in America, and they get to understand that product, then it's so much easier for them to share that. And that's where that intuitive service comes in. They're watching, they're starting to connect with with their customers, their guests when they come through the door. It's remembering who they are. It's those introductions, and then being observant. I think that's probably the biggest thing with hospitality. It is being there, serving, and you are there to provide this amazing service. But that observation is absolutely key, Rick, where they're looking around and thinking, who's pulling back from their chair? Who's looking with the eyebrows furrowed, and that observation, that's where a really great server comes into place, because they're asking the questions or answering them before the person's even thought about them. And that's that key service.
Hey there, CX Passport travelers. I want to let you know about CX Passport Live. CX Passport Live helps brands amplify their event's impact with the power of live, in-person podcasting. Brands partner with CX Passport Live at their on-site event to help excite attendees, reward high-value customers, and convert potential customers. Bring a new level of energy and excitement to your event and amplify your brand's impact with CX Passport Live. Learn more at cxpassportlive.com. Now, back to the show. It's interesting. I'm listening to you, one, as just a student of what you're saying, but I'm also listening to you as I'm observing you as a person in hospitality. You've done a couple of things here already where you talk about you mentioned the farmer in the villages, like Rick in those wonderful villages that you have in your country. And Rick, and you point it back to me when I know full well, Michelle, you've got those same exact experiences there in Australia, but you're finding a way to sort of reach out and connect with me. That's something you developed over decades. How should a company, and maybe a company or just a team or a person, you've got this new hire. Is it just, this is an innate skill? Can it be trained? What is it, this observation and then the pivot towards the customer, the guest that you're describing? How can that be equipped in someone who's new to hospitality?
Yeah. it's taking that time. It's that first day. It's that moment from that interview, Rick. You know, we can get very excited at interviews and we share with this new employee all the wonderful things that's going to happen. And they're excited. And there may be a 1 or 2 week build up before they even get to start in the business. And then on that first day, oh, well, things get caught up. You're not there to meet them. And it's not as nice or as welcoming as they thought it would be. So I always say, and it takes a little bit of time. But what you're doing here, you are creating that first impression, a great interview. You've now employed them. And as I said, there may be a couple of days. Give them a call, just, maybe the day before and say, really looking forward to you coming in tomorrow. Just letting you know, I've been thinking there is car parking down the street. And, at lunchtime, we go for a break about then. It's a great coffee shop. Let them know, particularly
Nice.
if the, new to the area, and then be there on that first day. I know we're all busy being business owners, but if you can it is worth every moment just to spend that 5 minutes and say, hi, Rick, I'm so glad you've joined me today. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of key people, and then they're going to show you what our business is all about. So, you've started to share that story.
Yeah.
You be there. You actually get them to shadow somebody, not the first time on the roster and the first shift is, well, here's how you make a coffee and off you go. It doesn't come naturally to many people. So they have to shadow. We want them to observe. And, I was down in Tasmania, which is this tiny little island at the bottom of Australia, in September this year, and they have a lot of overseas people who are working there, but they don't know the Australian area, and particularly Tasmania. It is a beautiful part of the world. But I observed the Australian waiters that have been there for a period of time, Rick. They had new people from Brazil, just 1 or 2 stuff, and they'd be listening to the stories. They'd be listening to this waiter say, do you know just around the corner, this is where this is? And you can go there to meet the beautiful
Nice.
fairy penguins. And over here is where and you could see this, they weren't serving, they were just listening. That's what created that experience.
Yeah, and we could spend an entire episode, and who knows, Michelle, we may come back and have you back for a second episode and focus exclusively on that onboarding experience. Because when I think of the multiple jobs that I've had, onboarding day one most often is, all right, welcome, here's a bunch of forms to fill out. And you go into some overly lit fluorescent room and fill out a bunch of forms using the same information that the company should already know about you, and all of that as it gets set up, as opposed to what you're describing, which is the vision, the warmth, the stories of the culture there. But we're not going to focus just on onboarding, because we're going to save that for the future. I want to talk about something else that you had brought up with me, and that is that idea of this multi-generational design. Especially if you're talking about in the hospitality and travel place, you could talk about something that has 6 generations, a need to design for that kind of breadth in a multi-generational expression. Where have you seen a company doing this really well? What lessons are there out there for others?
Yes, look, I am fortunate being particularly in hospitality and venues. We're looking at 6 generations of customers, those that are pre-veterans right through to our alphas, which I may just say quickly are at the end of this year, there will be 2 billion of them globally. So and they are, the top end is aged 14. If you're not thinking about them at this stage, then you are losing a lot of business, because they are large household influencers. Where you see businesses do really well here is thinking about what's that experience. So, just before COVID, I was traveling in Singapore and I was checking into the Ritz-Carlton, and then there were people in front of me and they had a couple of children. I'm thinking, this is going to take a little while, because you could see the children, pulling on mum and dad's legs going, come on. And they also had the elderly parents with them. Now, the first thing I noticed was that there were the person came from behind the counter and said to the older couple, please come and take a seat. So, and while another person was attending them behind the counter to fill out the forms and do all those procedures. So they were comfortable. The parents are now engaged and listening to all the things that they're going to need to know. But as the counter went along, it actually then dipped, Rick, and it cut into the counter down to child height. That's where the children then were asked to come along here and have a little bit of, there was some Play-Doh, pasta, there was some colouring sheets. But what that enabled the child to do was then to stand there. It was at their height. So we had those 3 key, really from pre-veterans right down to alphas there, that we're experiencing this check-in moment of, wow, we feel good, everybody feel comfortable. We're not getting up to our rooms going, oh, goodness me, and trudging along. But we see that in a lot of places, in
Yeah.
restaurants where they may be thinking, we've got aging people that may be on, a frame, or they may be, a lady with a large pram. So how do we set the furniture up? It's thinking about those sort of things. But those experiences have to be looked at by the team, and that's where that observation comes in. Really doing some research in your business and seeing, where are these key times? Are they all coming in at one time, or are they breaking up throughout the day? And then how do we create these experiences for them so that everybody has a wonderful time, whether they are 80 plus or 8 months?
Gosh, and what you're describing, not just the observation, it's a conscious choice to observe.
Yes.
The skill to do so, and a conscious choice. That what you're saying is relatively simple. Have some Play-Doh, have some coloring books, have a desk that's at the height of children. When I say the words, it's simple, but there was a choice. There was a design choice to have that in place. There's probably a checklist at the beginning of the morning that is the Play-Doh stocked? Is is the flight that is expected today one from a destination that is known to serve families, or is it for business travelers, whatever that might look like?
That's right. Yes.
I would like to completely shift gears here, Wanya.
Okay.
And it's my jealousy because of where you are and what you're experiencing right now. I had talked about how for folks outside of Australia, we think of Sydney, we think of Melbourne, and perhaps folks do the same when they're thinking of the U.S. if they're not familiar. It's a New York, it's an L.A., it's a Chicago kind of mindset. You're not there. You started to tell us a little bit about your area, but I would really love to know a little bit more about it, and any tips for a traveler there to say, hey, get out of those named areas and come here.
Yes, and that's probably the biggest thing. Tourists will come to Sydney, or they'll go to Cairns, which is our barrier reef. But it is great to get out of Sydney. Of course, we've got the Blue Mountains here west of Sydney, which are absolutely magnificent. Perth, which is on the other side of Australia, is a beautiful place, and so expansive. It takes up our whole country, like more than a quarter of it. But also places like Tasmania, where you have a lot of forest. It's very, very natural, beautiful dams, beautiful, if you're into walking, things like that, it's fantastic. But here in Barrel, the Southern Highlands, as I said, we do have a lot of tourists. We have tulips, like you get, in, what do we call it now? The Netherlands, instead, I was about to say Holland. And famous for that because of our cold weather. But even places like Mudgee in the Hunter Valley, which is only about 3 hours from Sydney, there is our wine region. Now, my daughter has a business there, and it is a beautiful space, and people go there for a weekend. So when you travel to Australia, you've got to realise this is a very big country, and it takes, next week I've got clients that are in a place called Gunnedah, and I'm training there. It's going to take me 9 hours to drive there next Thursday.
Good gravy.
Train there all day Friday, 9 hours to come home on Saturday. I'm still in New South Wales. I haven't left the state. So it's a big place. But I have been to Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, and I love your airport there. And if I can just go back just one step, when we're talking about that intuitive service and what makes something really special, was I was in Macy's, probably it must have been about 2019, in Dallas, because I was on an overnight flight, so I had a couple of hours. So I have to, girls got to shop, Rick. Anyway, I was shopping, and then all of a sudden I heard over the PA system, and I don't think they introduced it by ladies and gentlemen. It might have been customers. We just like to acknowledge, it was Sue in the luggage for doing an excellent customer service, and it just blew me away. We just want to recognise Sue, and as I said, I think it might have been luggage. Sue in luggage today because she created this amazing experience. So obviously the customer must have gone up and said, "Wow, that person was great." I'd never heard it before. That's the only time I've heard it. Maybe it was the manager on that day. But yeah, I'd love for yourself and your listeners who perhaps go to there, whether they still do that. But I thought, wow, what a way to acknowledge somebody that is, you haven't got them up on the stage, but you're acknowledging for the customers to realize that you're appreciating the service that they're providing your customers. I thought that was fantastic. So
Michelle, that's really cool. I wish that to know which Macy's it was. Was it the North Park one? Was it the Galleria? All of that.
it was
But
a big one.
well, and I think they're all kind of big. I also find it interesting that you use a story that a lot of us in Texas use, that it's, we can be driving for 9, but we can be driving for 15 hours if you really are kind of end to end of the state and you never leave the state. So New South Wales is the Texas of Australia. So you and I have a little more in common than even I realized before we started.
Yeah. Well, Western Australia is even bigger.
Yeah, so there you go.
If you look at the map, it is huge. But anyway, yes.
Well, and that distance is something that comes to mind when I think of Australia, because Australia to me is so far away. And that's where a first class lounge can be so important with a flight like that. So I want to invite you into the first class lounge here at CX Passport here. We'll do a little change of pace. We'll move quickly here and have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
Finland. I went for my first white Christmas at the end of 2023, and it was absolutely magical.
What a fun story that was your first white Christmas. I make a joke that's the reverse. The only white Christmas that I ever want is a white sand beach Christmas in Australia. So I hope that I get to experience your version of Christmas sometime in my life. But Finland must have been absolutely delightful around the Christmas season.
It's the most beautiful country. We had a fantastic group courier, who has been there for 30 odd years. He had come originally from Chile, and he made the trip. He really did. So it is fantastic.
Amazing how a guide, that really can make the trip. What about the other way? Looking forward, what is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
I haven't been to Canada. I've always wanted to go to Canada, and there was an opportunity there. My nephew married a lovely Canadian girl, but unfortunately my father became quite ill, so I had to cancel my trip. But I've always wanted to go there because, we hear about the Calgary Stampede, and I've met so many Canadians over the years, and just to, because I go to America quite a lot, and I've been to so many of your states, but I think, so I really want to try to get to Canada sometime next year. So that would be ideal.
I hope that happens. It's been a while since I've been there, but I remember really enjoying it. But I mean, it's been a while. It's been probably 20 years since I've been there, but it is a very delightful place. What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Oh, hope nobody's listening. Chocolate. We've got this wonderful chocolate shop in Barrel, and the lady's name's Michelle. So we get on, who owns the place. So we get on like a house on fire, Rick. And it's all these beautiful handmade chocolates.
Oh, wow.
So I go there once a week and I buy probably 14 chocolates, and they cost about $37. So it's my indulgence, and that lasts me a whole week. If my husband doesn't find them, then I hide them in the vegetable crisp because nobody eats the vegetables, and they're delightful. So yes, I'm prone for chocolate.
Ooh, and the danger of loving that and having such a great shop local to you is dangerous. What is something you were forced to eat when you were growing up, but you hated as a kid?
Well, I grew up on a farm, on a turkey farm, and I remember for some reason, I have no idea, my parents got sheep's brains.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to a bush school, so there were only 10 kids at our school. And I remember opening up my lunchbox. Well, it was like a little box.
Oh, no.
And my mother had put brains on my sandwich.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
never again.
No, I can imagine. I've got to imagine you were unsuccessful at trying to trade that lunch with others. Hey, you want my sheep brain sandwich? Can I have your turkey? Nope, that didn't work out so well. Michelle, we're going to have to leave the first class lounge. But as we do, what is one travel item, not including your phone, not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
A book. I love reading. I absolutely love reading. And you know what I did last week quickly? I flew to Hong Kong, 9-hour flight. I had a brand new book with me, 265 pages, and I read the whole lot. I never watched a movie. I went to the bathroom once. I didn't even put my headphones on, and I just sat there, and it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Off air, I'm going to want to know what that book is that kept you that enraptured for 9 hours. That is fantastic. And there's nothing quite like being immersed into a book when you've got that kind of just draw in there. They've set the stage, they've got the plot, they've got the characters, all that.
Mm.
And I know that if I can take that book idea into something else that you've told me that is really important to you, and that is setting the stage. Setting that
Yes.
scene is really important to you. You mentioned a little bit of it earlier.
Mm.
My father was a physician back when physicians had their own solo practices, and he had two choices on how to enter his office. There was the door around the back, or he could go into the front, the waiting area.
Mm.
And he always chose that waiting area because he wanted to see what the patient's first experience would be like. Now, there were probably some days that he did sneak in the back, but in general, he really tried to go in that front door, setting that scene. What are some examples of some great scene setting that you've experienced? Or well, if you want to, there's the other way. What are some scenes that may have disappointed you as well?
I love this topic because so many people in business just look at that service component, but that scene setting is absolutely key. Step outside your business, walk in from your car if you've got a car park, or even from the pavement. Walking from the pavement, I know, that's government land, but if it's got sticky chewing gum, clean it up. Then look at your display from the window. I know particularly at this time of year, we're starting to get in Christmas displays. And of course, you've got your Thanksgiving, we just passed Halloween. But, I've seen some shops that, food shops, this will be wonderful. And then there'll be just like this line of dust and a few dead flies, with the legs, at the bottom. Geez, no. And you sort of think, have they come in? Glass doors, handles, are they covered in footprints? Handprints.
I know that Australia's on the other side of the globe, but I think that we all use hands.
Upside down, but we do use.
I love it.
Handprints. Oh, silly me. But, it's even, wiping down that area where people are going to be opening and closing that door. What does it look like? Are there weeds? Have you got, what does your branding sign? A lot of people have opened businesses, even a few years ago, but the sun's faded that. Take a look at that. New phone numbers, all that correct. Then you go inside. What's it like? It's a very hot day. And I know, in America, the same as Australia, we all have our lovely puppy dogs now. Many people take those with them when they're shopping. If that's your area and you allow business dogs to come into having that bowl of cold water, but then thinking about the two-legged people that come into your business. If it is really hot, what can you do for them? What about just a nice little table with some cold water with a couple of slices of lemon and lime in it and ice? Think about those things. Of course, think about the little rubbish bin to put the little cups in. You don't want to make a mess. Umbrellas, just I was saying to you before, coming back from Hong Kong last week, the monsoonal rains, every business that you walked into, you had a special holder where you just ran your umbrella through it and it dried it off, but as well as you had a canister there for your umbrellas. Then thinking about the actual spaces of your aisles, if you're a baby shop, is there that area for prams to go along if you're a baby shop? Because usually people bring their babies with them. If you've got a space where there are aging people, if you've got, that there is a group of people coming in, setting up that space beforehand. Now, I work with a lot of restaurants and cafes, Rick, and I was saying to them, on really big days, and you've got a lot of reservations, instead of them having to go and get the cutlery from, the main, table, that's got the salt and pepper and tomato, the sauces and your ketchup and things, have those tables already set out. So all the reserved tables, all the napkins are there, the knives and forks, all the salt and peppers, they're already on that table. So you don't have 18 or 24 people getting up and down, moving around, they just go there. So it's thinking about setting the scene. It can be for a long period of time, or it can be just for those short bursts. How are we going to create an experience that they're going to go, wow, this is going to save us a lot of time, but also is not impacting on other diners or customers as well?
And I realize that it's easy for you and me. We're sitting here, we're on a podcast in our comfortable spaces to talk about that. I know that there's an actual challenge in doing so, yet what you're describing is sort of a conscious choice. I'm going back to what we had talked about earlier. I think about, and you gave me the thought when you talked about the water cups. That's nice. That's delightful. A lot of folks think of that. I've seen a lot of places that don't think of the trash bin. And
Yes.
I'm thinking of so many restaurants have little mints as you are walking
Yes.
out of the restaurant. Great. Pop that mint in, and now I've got this little plastic wrapper that I have no earthly idea what to do with. And I
Yes.
don't see a trash can. I have no idea what to do with that. So those little things that seem, that's not I guess that's scene setting, but on your exit, that's how I remember that last moment with that restaurant. There's
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, even about the restrooms, Rick,
Oh, yeah.
I know we have a number of hand dryers, but people still have paper towels and they enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they go out of that restroom, and many people, and I'm one of them, I will use a piece of that hand paper to open the door. I walk out, now what am I going to do with it? And so I found a number of my clients, they start having these piles of paper behind the door because people would leave it. But as you exit, just have a little trash can there so they can put that in. It's just those simple little things that you've got to think about the whole mapping of that journey.
I've seen more of that. I too like to have the little paper towel with the handle there, and I've seen more of that, which I'm thankful for.
Yes,
because exactly that. And you're right that restrooms are so vital. I don't know if you're familiar with the Buc-ee's brand here in the South and the Texas area of U.S., but that is their claim to fame is clean restrooms. And just that scene setting of, you're going to stop here. It's going to be clean. There's not going to be paper towels everywhere.
Yes.
That is going to set that experience along with the rest of what the Buc-ee's brand is. Again, another episode for another time. Yet, let's talk about this. There's the flip side of that. And then sadly, I can tell that time is starting to tick away from us here. But I want to ask you this, because it's easy, like I said, for you and me to talk about this in the abstract. But there's another side of it, and that's cost. There are brands listening right now. There are people that are working with brands that go, that's really great, Michelle and Rick. Nice of y'all to have that theoretical conversation, but I don't have the resources. I don't have the funds. I don't have the time. I don't have the priority to do all that experience stuff. What do you say to those brands?
Well, I wish you all the very best of luck, because you won't be in business for very long.
And we're out. No, I love it. We could end on that, Michelle, but I love that perspective. Beyond telling them that they're going to be looking for a new brand to create, how can you motivate them to actually turn that attitude around?
You've got to think about it. The fact, I know business, it takes a lot of time. Both of us have been in business for many years, and I'm sure your listeners have been too. But you've got to make time in your business to create these experiences. That container of water, you can go down to Trader Joe's or wherever your local, store is. You've got your Black Friday sales coming up. Grab those, that cheap water jug. A lemon's not going to cost you much money. That doesn't cost you much money. But what it does is creates an amazing experience that people will remember, and they'll come back to you and they'll tell others. Cleaning that restroom, that doesn't cost money. That's just looking at your roster and seeing who's on that shift and allocating time for them to do that. So it's thinking out, looking at things a little bit more, more clearer. That's why systems and procedures are really important, Rick, because without systems and procedures, we just get through the end of the day. We don't know how we've gotten there, and things have all been higgledy-piggledy and it's probably taken up a lot more time than we needed. So having those systems, having those rosters, and dedicating people and time, putting pride into their work. That's that doesn't cost money. And in all seriousness, if you don't think about that customer experience and service, then I don't know how they will succeed. It is very hard in business and in hospitality to get past that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year mark without creating experience that people will go, I want to go back to you, whether they're on one side in Texas or whether they've got a brand that's across the whole country.
That's it. I'm not asking you anything else, because I want to end on that, because you wove together so many things that I care about: the process, the choice, the execution, the hospitality, the care, the customer, the design choices. It's all beautiful. It's all there, Michelle. Michelle, if folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, your podcast, your approach to customer service, your approach to hospitality, what's the best way for them to learn more?
Oh, thank you, Rick. So they can go onto my website, which is Michelle Pascoe, so MichelePascoe.com. And all the information is there. So whether it's my leadership program development, I'm very much into inspiring and getting them to move from buddy to boss, from that frontline worker, and have them on that journey to go through and create these amazing careers. Of course, I know you're going to put my link there for my podcast, but all the information's there. As I said, I love traveling. I'm in desperate need to read another book. So please invite me to come over to the US. I know I've got a couple of trips already lined up for 2025, and I do a lot of conference speaking. So there's a lot of information there as well.
Well, good. And I certainly, that's all going to sit there in the show notes, and folks can get to know a little bit more about you and reach out to you and suggest a book that you can read on that flight to the U.S. when you're coming for that next great conference or that next great client. So, Michelle, it was a delight having that conversation with you today. The focus on hospitality, the focus on that actual scene setting. This is delightful, and I think it's important, and I think it's something that, well, as you said, if it's not being done, well, good luck with your brand. Yes. So that was brilliant. Michelle, thank you for being on CX Passport.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.